Hey everyone, this is Julia Barbara, host of the Julia and Gino Podcast. I'm here with the co-founder of Jake and Gino, my husband and co-host, Gino Barbara.
Julia Barbara.
Yes.
What's the secret to marriage, Julia Barbara? We just asked that question.
Yeah, secret to marriage. Start a podcast with your husband. Have people on that, that we talk about things that you normally don't bring up, and then you have to talk about them. And I think that's our secret.
That's your secret. That's not my secret.
Oh, that's what's true. My secret. What's your secret?
I'll give it to you maybe at the end of the show. I need to dwell on that question. That's a tough question, actually. It's a very difficult question because there's no secret. I think, honestly, the secret is just show up every day and to give it your best. That's all you need. Today's guest wrote a beautiful book. Her name is Jasmine Mullen. She's a writer and singer from Nashville, Tennessee. I maybe even got to sing some opera on this show today, Julia. When she isn't touring or creating music, she's usually writing a story or daydreaming one up. Her latest book, Ben Washington is the Newbie on the Block, is a story of friendship, faith, and finding God in the hard spaces of life. Welcome to the show, Jasmine.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, y'all.
And it's interesting. As I'm saying, I'm going to sing opera on the show. My wife is kicking me underneath the chair. I won't sing on this podcast. Don't worry about it.
The secret to a happy marriage.
Hey, I'm here for it. That's cool.
See, someone appreciates it. Anyway, Jasmine,
you have a fan.
I read the book, and as I'm reading the book, I love it only because, as I told you before we hit the record, it's as if, as we're adults, I can only speak for men. We can all resonate with this young little boy who's lost, who's afraid, who doesn't fit in, who's fearful of where he is, who doesn't like change. And I think a lot of us can resonate with that. What made you want to write this book?
You know what? It feels like one of those things. I'm in a band, and me and my bandmates talk about a lot how the best songs are the ones that you feel like you catch and not that you sit down to write. And this story kind of felt like a catching story too, because we were on the road, and I don't know why, but while we were on tour and I was just sitting in the van for hours and hours, I just started writing it. I think maybe some of it feels like a love letter to my little brothers, because I'm the oldest of three and I have two little brothers. And then some of it kind of feels like a love letter from them in some ways. But they've impacted me in such ginormous ways. And I think I'm always thinking about my brothers a lot when I'm creating. So I don't know if that's where like the inspiration came from, but it kind of just feel like I caught it, which is interesting.
And what is the message? If you have to say to somebody before they read the book, this is the central theme, or this is what I want people to capture from this book, what would it be?
My thing is that I want it to everyone to feel like, even if they don't feel like they belong, that they have a place. And two, that you can be friends even if it takes hard work. You can find your people. And the thing I've been praying for is that it causes conversations between people, and that it causes deep connection between people.
Those are two things that we need right now, actually having honest conversations.
Yeah.
And deeper connections. And I think probably one of being married for 26 years, as you get on in marriage, you tend to get deeper connection. And if you don't, I mean, the relationship won't last and people start drifting away. But having that connection, I think, is really important. And those conversations are really important as well.
I'm curious. I love the fact that you're talking about your siblings, because, as parents, we pray for and desire our children to stay connected, stay, in each other's lives throughout their lives. I have two siblings as well, and they are super important to me. And we've never really had a show on siblings before, if you think about it. Not really. We talk about marriage, we talk about working together, we talk about relationships with parents. But tell me about your siblings and your connection with them and your relationship.
Oh man, I'm so excited I get to talk about them. So I have two little brothers, like I said. They're not really little anymore. The middle brother, his name is Max, and he's 26 years old.
He'll always be little to you.
I know, I'm like, you're my baby. And he's 26, and he just became a dad, and it's the best thing ever. I love his wife so much. And then he's not a baby, but my baby brother is 21 years old, and we're 9 years apart. I'm 30. And he is just like the apple of my eye. So Max, the middle brother, he's like been a sweet angel since we were little kids. He literally is just like kind to everyone, like really great with kids. And when I was a kid, it really got on my nerves because I was like, can you just like be mean for 5 seconds? Like I'm always in trouble and you're never in trouble because you're so nice. But he was our angel, and he is actually the only one in our family that's adopted, but also he's the only one in our family that looks exactly like our mom. Like me and my other brother look like nothing like our mom, and he looks exactly like her. And so he just always has felt like he's just like a joy for all of us. And so I love him. And then my baby brother is like extremely talented. He's like very like strong, and he also works with kids, but he's like the one who like is not afraid of disruption, which is like really good for me because I'm like, I like order, I like everything to be in its place, and he's like, no, we don't need that, like let's move it out of the way, let's figure it out. And so he is like such a fortifier in a way because he pokes holes in things that don't work. And the middle one is like, he's such like a gentle like blanket for people, I think. And then I'm just like big sister. Like that's just who I am. I'm just like, what do you need? Like I'm gonna listen. And sometimes they're like, you're doing too much. Calm down. So, but anyway, that's our relationship.
So let's talk about Ben in the story. I mean, did you get a lot of his personality from your family? And did Ben's mom and dad, do they mirror somewhat of what your family looks like?
Totally. So Ben is, I always say, kind of combo of my brothers. He's sassy like JoJo. Like he's kind of got a little like funny energy to him, like the baby Josiah. And then he's like very introspective like Max. And but he also kind of has like a little bit of me in there. Like Ben is also kind of me. Like some of the ways he says things feels like me. The mom, honestly, even though she does remind me of my mom, she's even more like some of my friends who are like basically my family now. So some of my bandmates, I have 2 bandmates who are brother and sister. The sister and her twin sister, like there's a lot of things about Ben's mom that are them. And they're like the sisters that I've never had. So they really like, it's them. And Ben's dad is like, he's like kind of a collection of a lot of friends that I have who are basically family as well. But yeah, like their family, Ben's family is not really like, it doesn't function like my family does, but like I see a lot of traits in the people that like have made their way into his family.
2 comments that I'd like to make about the book. The first one is Ben's father, you called him a little nerdy, but he's a cool nerdy. And that's really cool because everyone thinks of this male as having to be strong and having to work out. And it's pretty cool that you can have a dad who's just a normal person who likes to read books, who likes to go get ice cream. That's a nice representation of what a father figure can be. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like,
you should see our home, the amount of books that we've got.
Yes, but I mean, Ben's dad actually has a bookstore. So I mean, he goes to work in a bookstore.
I have a bookstore.
Yes, I could have a bookstore. Yes, and the other part is, look, talk about Kenny, because it sounds as if Kenny is very similar to your younger brother. He seems like a really nice kid. He came out of nowhere. His mom's making him eat organic pizzas, and they're trading between Ben and him. And it sounds as if that relationship is what really Ben needed to get on. And I think if anybody's listening to this, if you have a son that you can raise to be like a Kenny, it would be really an amazing thing. So, how is that relationship so integral to the book between Kenny and between Ben?
Great question. Yeah, I love Kenny. He is so fun and so funny. He is integral because he is not dissuaded by Ben's attempts to push him away. Like, he's like, I'm new too. I'm here. I'm like okay with myself. Like, I'm a weird guy, but I'm okay with it, and I love myself. And I think like there's something really special about that because Kenny, even though he's like also 12 and going through like all the weird changes that happen when you're 12, he's a little bit more secure than Ben is when it comes to who he is. Like Ben is like, I mean, Ben is going through so much transition too. So it's not just that Ben is insecure, but like the position that he's standing on is an insecure position because he's like, everything's new. Nothing makes sense anymore. I don't know who I am. No, these people don't know who I am. And Kenny's like, I know who I am and I want to be your friend. And there's something that's really beautiful about that, because I think when we approach people who we don't know from a place of security, we often form like these kind of relationships that are like so strong. And I think a lot of times people are like, I wish I had friends. I don't have friends. And my pastor is always talking about, she's like, if you want to like have friends, go be a friend. You know, like if you wish somebody would sit by you, like go sit by somebody else. And that is really what Kenny does. And I have friends like that who I've been like, I'm so shy. I don't want to talk to anybody, who have been like, I want to talk to you. And they've like come and sat by me, and their security has allowed me to find security for my own self.
Do you think also the fact that Kenny probably is not judgmental? I think most of us, he has no judgment. He's able to sit down. He, like you said, he's secure with himself, but he's not judging Ben as you look at this guy. He's sitting by himself. He's all alone. This guy's a loser. Instead, he's like, hey, let me meet something new. Let me find something new with curiosity. If we as adults approach things with more of a curious, less judgmental way, and our lens is so narrow, and we decide to increase our lens, I think life and relationships would take a different route.
I agree.
Yeah. Jasmine, how does faith play a role in your personal life, even in your family life, and also throughout the book?
Yeah. So faith, my relationship with Jesus is the means by which I do everything. So even if it's not that I'm writing a story that's like about literally Jesus and the disciples, it's still like through the lens by which I write everything and move and like breathe and have friendships and love and, you know, everything. And so, in my personal life, I just literally believe that Jesus, he often talked to us by telling us stories. He taught people by telling us stories. He's given us the tradition of storytelling. Even before Jesus showed up on the scene, there was like parables, and the tradition of stories has been the way that we've been able to explain ourselves and understand God to the degree that we can, and that God has chosen to explain himself to us. And so for me, storytelling feels like the rich tradition of God. And it's like the same thing with like the way I live. Like when I have friendships, it feels like the rich tradition of God, like the same way that he has always like inspired community throughout the scriptures and like told us how to live in community with each other, is the way that I do my best to be like, okay, Lord, like teach me how to be a friend, teach me how to be a writer. Like you've done all this first. Everything that I am, you've done before I've done it. So it's just, to me, it's just the way that I live. It's the closest relationship that I will ever have from now and past eternity is Jesus.
Who was your big impact with your faith in your life? Like
there's so many. I mean, my parents both love Jesus, and they're very different in their expressions of faith, which has been really cool. My mom is way more charismatic than my dad, and she has like this very rich faith and understanding, an ear that's trained to hear him. And my dad is very studied and has such a brain for like the knowledge of God. And then my grandmother, she's probably one of the biggest ones. My maternal grandmother, she just like, I don't even know if she's actually human. She might be an angel. Like she knows God in such a deep way that I like pray that one day I'll get to know him. And then my dad's mom was like such a deep prayer. She just went to heaven, but she was like the kind of woman who, if she said she was going to pray every single morning, she was praying for you. So all those people like have given me a heritage of faith that I'm really thankful for.
And you wrote the book. The importance. Just talk about the importance of having the book for the African American community, for Blacks, and for the show of faith that you have in the book, because there's not a lot of it out there. Unfortunately, there really isn't that much. And did you write that with that in mind as well?
Totally. I think it came naturally to me because I am Black, so it's like the story that came out of me naturally. But when I started having, because I didn't write it knowing that it would ever become a book other people would read. It was just kind of a story for me. But once it became a story, like once Moody asked me about developing it, we had talked about this thing called mirror stories and window stories, and how like every fictional story is like either a story where you look in the mirror and you say, oh, that's me. Or you look through a window and say, okay, I see somebody else's story. And how for Black children, it's like, I want to say that like the biggest, like 80% of stories are mirror stories for white little boys. And then 10% is white little girls, and then animals, and then Black children, and then everybody else. And I just didn't know that. Like, I mean, I didn't grow up reading a lot of books where there are girls or boys who looked like me. But it feels really important to give Black children, but also white children, stories where the Black kid is the protagonist, like where like he's the one who's like not just the hero, but like the one who gets to make mistakes and learn from them, and like who gets to share their point of view. And I think it's really important that we tell Black stories, not just because we want to see ourselves, but because other people get to see into that story and understand. And because stories help us understand each other. So for me, it's really important from a space of like, I want a little Black, and I have heard so many beautiful stories of Black children, specifically boys, being able to read it and be like, he's like me, like, and that makes me want to cry, like, because that's so, like, that's what I wanted, growing up. I didn't really have that. And so that is so important to me. But also I've had stories of like white kids reading, and they're like, this is so funny, like I want to be Ben's friend, and or like Kenny reminds, I feel like Kenny, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I think stories unite, and so it's so important to me.
So to me, when I'm reading the book, the irony is you may have written it for the African American community, but if I'm a white boy reading this book, I resonate totally, because we actually lived in New York, and we moved to Florida 7 years ago.
Whoa.
And kids had the same challenge. The oldest two kids loved it. The youngest two kids loved it. The middle two kids hated it. They were Kenny. They're like, I don't want to be here. I'm not part of this. I don't have any friends. I don't feel like this is home right now. So as I'm reading this book, I'm saying to myself, I don't even see Ben's color. That's the funny thing. I'm not even looking at it, but I'm identifying with his message and with his, I guess, his life. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. First of all, New York to Florida, that's quite a jump. Second of all, I know, I think that's the beauty of it, is it's like we get to experience each other's color because that's such a beauty that God has given us. But when we read other people's stories, I think often we find that the things that we thought were going to be really different aren't really there. Like, there are things that are different about our lives for sure. But I think what we're all going to pick up when we share each other's stories is the humanity. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, I felt like that. Yeah, I've been new. Yeah, like I have been tempted to, say something mean about somebody else, or, push people away. And like, I think there's so much more internally the same than different. So that's really cool.
I actually agree with you 100%. I think we have so much more in common than we have differences. And I think if people stop and really read a book like this, they're like, wow. And as I was telling you, the adult part, I'm like an adult reading this, and I felt as if when I was a little kid, I could so see myself sitting in the cafeteria all by myself, hoping that someone would sit next to me and not getting bullied. And that I felt exactly like that as I read the book.
Just a quick little story, which can relate to this or not. But when I was back in high school, I had lots of, random friends from all over. Most of them were Irish. Some of them were Italian. So don't worry, Gino. But I had this one friend. I'm going to say one of my best friends, and his name, won't have to say it just in case he would never listen to this. I don't even know where he is in life. But he was one of my greatest friends. And I have to say, he dated one of my girlfriends. And growing up, I was very comfortable around him, whatever. We laughed a lot. And sometime when we were moving down here, so this is like 7 years ago. Now, just to tell you, I'm 49, so I'm older. This is a long time ago. Okay. I'm going through all my old pictures and I'm like, oh, look, this is from high school. And I'm showing the kids. And I'm like, look, this is my friend they would talk about once in a while. And I'm like, oh, I never even noticed he was a Black kid. I had no idea. Like growing up, I didn't even know. And I thought how interesting that is, that everything seems so divided nowadays. But even looking at what person's, color is, what all of this stuff. But back in our day, I'm going to say that because I feel old. It wasn't even a thought in our head. Mm-hmm. He was this beautiful kid that I knew and loved. And I didn't even notice. And I love that. And I told the kids about it. And they're like, that is awesome. I love that.
Yeah. You know what? And I think that there is so much beauty to that. I think something too my mom always says is, she says, you can see each other's color. Just don't stop there.
Absolutely.
I think that there is a beauty of seeing, like, to be able to see it. Like, because when people notice that I have my twist in my hair, or, that like my family has a certain way of laughing that maybe they don't have, it feels beautiful to me because God made us different. Sure. We're allowed to see that.
Yes,
you just can't stop there. If all I am to you is a Black woman, if all you are to me is a white woman, that's not good enough.
Not good enough.
But it's such a beautiful thing to be able to see because God made us like that on purpose. It's like if there was an apple and an orange on the table, like, I can see that this is an apple. I can see that this is an orange. And they're both fruit, and at the same time, they're not the same. And that's good. And they all can be a part of the fruit salad, And so I think that's cool. Yeah.
Love that. So what's next for you? Another book?
Yeah. Actually, the second one comes out in November, which I'm really, really excited about it, to be able to expand the world just a little bit. And for Ben and Kenny to get into more hijinks, maybe have a couple more friends. And then my band is making a record. And so we're in the studio. So it's just like a little bit of a kind of a whirlwind time, but it's really sweet.
That's awesome.
And getting back to the book, I want to finish on with the book itself. What do you, when you see Ben, what do you want to happen to his future? You want to get more friends? Obviously, it seems as if he made the decision, like, we're staying here, we're not going anywhere. Where it seemed like the parents were wavering a little bit. Where did he find the courage to do that? And where do you see his future?
I think he got, honestly, the courage from the peace of God to stay. Mm-hmm. I think, there's so many times where I've had that same feeling where I've been like, oop, I got to get out of here. And the Lord's like, nope, not yet. It's okay. Like, I've got you. Like, I'm not going to remove you from this situation yet, but I'm going to be with you. And so I think the peace of God is allowing him to stay. I think what I really hope for this next season of Ben's life is that he gets more friends, but also that he gets more tools, like emotionally, and that he has fun, and that the world that he has allowed himself to think is the whole world expands. And he's like, no, there's more in the world. So he's going to make more mistakes. He's going to have more experiences and more fun, and he's going to laugh more and probably cry a little bit, be a little angry sometimes, but I think he's just growing up, just like all of us.
That's awesome. Where can I buy the book? Anyone listening to this, where can they get more information about you? Where can they go buy the book?
Yeah, right now, I know that for sure you can buy it on Amazon.com and Target.com. And you might be able to find it in a random bookstore near you, but I would check there first. And
you have a website or anywhere that anyone can learn more about you?
You can find out more about me, I need to get a website, but right now you can find out more about me on Instagram, which is just at Jasmine Mullen.
At Jasmine Mullen. Julia, wrap it up, baby.
No, this is a beautiful story, and I'm waiting. My husband does the best wrap ups, so that's why this is kind of like my highlight that I get to listen to his wrap ups.
I love it.
Go for it.
You want me to wrap up
I do.
the podcast? Well, I would say that Jasmine comes from a strong family of faith. She's got the oldest sister mentality where I can do it all. I'm the boss. I love you guys. I'm the one who gets in trouble.
He's the oldest.
Why are you two guys?
I'm the youngest. That's why.
Oh wow, what a pairing! I love it.
And I'm like, can you guys make some mistakes here? I'm always getting in trouble. You guys are the angels here. And the irony is, growing up in that household. And what I thought to be interesting was you like to have things neat, orderly, everything in its place, but yet you're a musician. And musicians are like the irony is so bewildering. And you're writing a book. So so those are things that stable, normal people just don't do. That you're not the 9 to 5. You should be the 9 to 5, but you're the anti 9 to 5.
Correct.
Keep doing the anti 9 to 5, because that's, I think, where you show up in life. And creating a story like this for people to create impact for those that may not have this type of role model, that all they see on TV is really anti-family, anti-Jesus, anti-religion, is really, really important to put out a message like this. And for people to read this book, if you're a young male or even an older male, you may resonate with this story, and I think you will. And I think it's a cool thing to see the growth of Ben from leaving his place of comfort to going somewhere different. And, for those of you out there who are comfortable in life, there's really no growth. There's no, I don't want to say happiness, but there's nothing that when you have that comfort, there's nothing to really look forward to. And I think Ben was comfortable in Atlanta. And then when he ended up moving to Wisconsin, things got out of hand. They got out of whack. And he was just not in control of his surroundings, but he gave himself time. And I think with prayer, with having a great family, with finding some great friends, he ended up having a great life. So I want to thank you for being on. This is a great story, great book. And once again, at Jasmine Mullen, check her out on Instagram. And the book is on Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jasmine. That was awesome. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We will see you next time.